Lifestyle Podcast. This is episode number 74. It is a world report on Earth care, and the topic that we're going to be talking about today is what's the curriculum for caring for our Earth. And this is kind of a add-on to the last world report that we had last month, at the beginning of last month in December. And really, if you remember, we were talking about the Silent Spring and the story of Rachel Carson. My mind kind of slipped for a moment there on the name. Rachel Carson and the story of her journey, and a lot of her journey being out in the outdoors and exploring things, and then recognizing that there was a silent spring happening, that she wasn't able to hear the birds, and there was a reasoning for that, and it was a gradual understanding, and it was a gradual consensus with naturalists around her and scientists that were out in the outdoors and learning something. And that made a huge difference and contribution to environmentalism. Some say it's saved different species, and it allowed us to take a deeper look on how we interact with our environment. And it really was that kind of jumping off point for a switch in the Western world's thought process, right? And so I was thinking about that. I've been reading and exploring, and really these world reports, it's a world report according to Josh Prieto, who is, only one person in this world, and I have the opportunity to talk with people all over the world in our interviews on the podcast, but it's still just me, so I want to address that here. But I also want to just share my thoughts and the things that I'm learning and some of the things that I'm seeing in the news, and maybe share a little bit of the good news and maybe the opportunities for us to change as regenerative entrepreneurs and people trying to practice and create a regenerative livelihood. So I have been thinking about this question. What's the curriculum for caring for our Earth? As I've been thinking and pondering this question, one of the biggest things that kind of came up is, and kind of going back to the last world report on future care and education and learning from nature, that could very much be the curriculum is nature teaches us, right? And that's basically what it is. But I tried to explore of how does someone start to be more thoughtful, start to learn from nature and care for the earth. And I can only speak for myself, my own experiences, and maybe share what I've learned from others as well. But I am a huge skier, and that's what usually that comes to my mind when I think of why I'm such a tree-hugging social entrepreneur, and why others get involved and start to learn from and start to apply new understanding and apply new innovation and business towards regeneration. I think it's because they have a deep love for nature first, and a respect for nature, and then nature starts to open up to them because they're willing and they're humble enough to take the lessons that come from the creations that God has given us, right? And I'll take it to that level because that's my belief, right? But what I really got a sense from is the skiing in my life has taught me something, right? And I talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of people up in this canyon, Yellow Fort Canyon in Utah. We're on the Oquirrh Mountains, and the other side is the Wasatch Mountains, if you're familiar with the area, where everybody knows about the skiing. And this is kind of the rain shadow other side, and no one really likes to come up here as much as they do the Wasatch side because it's not as foresty, right? But to get to know your area and to get to know your around you, you start to learn things, and that's how I came to that understanding. So I was wondering if that's true and if that holds true to you. So if you're listening to this episode, maybe get involved in the Slack community, and maybe I'll ask this question and see where did you get your deep respect for nature and started to learn from nature. And I have a feeling that it's from your local area, right? So I have been thinking about this, and I also thought about, where do we get our understanding that we need to do something in the world to care for our planet and care for our Earth. And I think we start to recognize, just like Rachel Carson did, when she started to see that the chemicals were making a negative impact in the environment, and she did that by observing over time nature. But we see a challenge, or we see a gradual problem that might exist, and it's almost natural. It comes to us, right? And we want to take a response on that. Well, I was thinking of this as well, and I think of, I was watching, because I'm a skier, I love to watch skiing on YouTube and the different professionals. And there's this professional that has a video blog, and he's his name is Cody Townsend, and he's trying to do the 50 classic lines, and dubbed classic by one of the great skiers, Chris Davenport, who wrote a book on it with some other fellows on the 50 great classics, right? And so he decided, after reading that book, Cody Townsend did, that he was going to go ski them and document all 50 of these. And they're really hard lines, and well, a lot of them are, right? And the funny thing is that the right conditions have to exist. And this is where I'm thinking, where does someone actually get the idea that they need to do something about caring for the Earth? And as Cody's been getting involved in this, he's noticed that there is some challenges to his goal to accomplish these 50 classic lines in skiing mountaineering. And the big challenge is that most of these lines, they've been done maybe more at least once, right? But they've been done in the past, and it's been really, really hard to know how much those lines have changed over the years. And especially because of climate change, they have changed quite a bit over the years. And because of climate change, he's noticed that some of these lines, it's going to take quite some time for him to get through it. And I think he's like 20 down, or he has 20 left. I can't remember quite how many he's actually accomplished. But he's trying to accomplish them before all the lines disappear, or he's unable to do the lines, the ski lines, because of most of these lines are on glaciers, and our glaciers are disappearing, right? And so it's interesting and fascinating to see that that's where his, just one person, that's where his earth care thought comes into being. But it was through interaction with nature. And he's just a skier, right? He's just a skier, loves skiing. He's a professional skier, but he's been activated to share that understanding and help others to understand. And maybe we need to do something. That maybe we need to stand up and start making the changes ourselves to be able to enjoy nature and to learn from nature. So that was just a thought that I've been thinking. And again, this is a world report according to Josh, and so that's my little world extending into your world. Hopefully it's relevant to you. But some of the other things that have been happening in my little existence where I'm at, or where I dwell, and a lot of that is online at this moment of COVID, right? I've been talking with friends, Ray Milodoni, sorry Ray if I'm mispronouncing your last name, of Farming Secrets. He posted in one of their groups that Elon Musk was asking for, or is going to be donating 100 million towards uh, finding the best carbon capture technology. And I thought this was really interesting because in the comments, well, this is what Ray said as he was introducing it. He showed the tweet, right? And Ray goes, you know, I'm curious to know what you guys think. How can we teach people, and I'm paraphrasing Ray's words here, how can we teach people or educate people that nature already has the answer for finding these carbon capture, technology. Nature already has the technology. Is kind of what Ray was saying. How can we educate people about that? We don't. If you're going to spend 100 million, why not spend 100 million agroforestry or crops that are going to help sequester that carbon? And it was kind of funny because the comments, there was a small thread starting in there, and one thing that Ray said as well is like, I wonder if he's thinking about Mars, right? And maybe it's a solution for Mars that he's thinking about, and we kind of joked and laughed a little bit about it, like the technology side of things. There is, and it's a sad truth that our focus is so much on the wrong thing. And why is that? Everywhere around us, we're seeing this. I'm speaking to the choir for the most part, but if there is someone that's, I'm a very techie person, right? I love my tech. It's kind of a vice of mine, wearables and all of those things, right? And I understand that I probably consume way too much rare metals and the like, but I also understand that our over focus in the last several years has been on technology trying to solve these problems when nature has already given those answers to us. We're just kind of almost refusing to receive those answers. And so I was thinking of that post that Ray did, and I was also thinking of some of the other things that I was noticing out there, and it was kind of funny. In comparison to Elon Musk giving that 100 million towards carbon capture technology, there's a study actually that was done by Cornell University. It was led by an international team of several people. It was a really great collaboration of economists, scientists, business experts, and they try to create a roadmap. And I want to dive into this more, and so I'll give you the links and stuff that you can dive into this as well. But they started creating a roadmap for global agriculture and food system innovation, and reform. And they said sustainability, but a lot of stuff in there had key elements of regeneration as well, kind of moving beyond sustainability and getting into regenerative agriculture, improving soil, using nature to sequester carbon. And it was kind of a good contrast but at the same time, you're looking through some of the things that the steps and the roadmap they think, and it was still very tech driven, right? Technology, man-made technology, not trying to understand nature, not looking at it as a holistic view. It was still more of a holistic view, but it was still kind of sad to see that even still our mainstream, or even slightly outside of the mainstream and into the edges, which I would consider, this Cornell University team kind of building this roadmap was more towards the edges of and finding more fertility and understanding there. I still recognize that it was heavily focused on, we can fix this. We can come up with the solution. Nature already has that solution, right? So again, it was interesting to see that. But not to completely tear down the roadmap that they did, because I saw some wonderful things in soil health and a focus on more regenerative practices. And I also saw, that they were looking more holistically, and they brought in economists and business people to kind of see a greater thing. So they were implementing some novel financial mechanisms to transform the agro food system and reconfiguring, some of the mindset shifts and cultural shifts that need to happen, and getting the public support for change, right? So this was really quite encouraging for us to kind of see some of this happening. Well, I'm still recognizing, and it's still coming up against these out of touch solutions. We talk about, Elon Musk's approach. It's all tech. Every answer is all tech. You look at Bill Gates. It's all about finding the technology is going to solve us, so save us, right? And but when we come down to it, we're still seeing these out of touch solutions and behaviors. The U.S. There was another study that came out just recently, kind of looking back at our plastic consumption, and this is actually coming from 2016, but they just released and did the study on it, and it said 46 million tons of plastic in the U.S. alone, and this is 2016 alone, was created. Plastic waste was created, and then so about 5.6% of that is mismanaged. Means it's going to the oceans. It's going out into our environment. It's creating microplastics and causing damage, right? And so they estimated about 1,300 plastic trash bags per person in the United States. This is just the United States, right? And we're the number one in plastic. U.S. is number one in plastic waste. That's about 1.6 million tons that is going to our oceans and creating microplastics and creating all those nasty issues alongside of it. And it's getting to the point that we've been actually shipping our plastics out of the country. That's what kind of carbon footprint is that, to have the waste in the first place, and then we have to ship the waste out. And we're actually, a lot of countries are now putting in policies where they're no longer going to take the U.S. waste, or not supposed to take U.S. plastic waste. And so this is really interesting. That's a behavioral thing that's really out of touch, right? We understand that we need to be more in touch with our environment, and we understand that the plastics are a detriment to our environment and even to our health at this point. I think the general consensus is understanding of that. But we like our convenience, and we also are slightly out of touch with nature. And largely, I think that it's because we don't get out enough in it, right? So, wait right there. I am going to add some battery life here and plug myself in to the gimbal, because I noticed I got a prompt that my battery is going to die out here in the wilderness, in nature. Does he hear the bird? Okay. I don't know if I'll cut that out. I might be a little lazy and I won't cut that out. But so where were we? That's an out of touch, showing the out of touch pieces of our culture and our behavior. But one of the out of touch solutions, I think, because we're trying to solve this solution, we understand the solutions, or we understand that we need to create solutions. I saw, and I don't know if you saw the Jeff Gibbs documentary, Planet of the Humans. It was really quite fascinating. Kind of one of those ones that you feel, I feel like a horrible person just being a human being, after. It was one of those bad feeling ones that doesn't leave you feeling good at the end. And I'd rather be more inspired. So if you're gonna watch it, it's great, but just be prepared on that type of thing. But it brings to light some important challenges, and we have to address those. And it was great. I'm grateful that people are addressing those challenges. But it's a very out of touch solution when we say we're going to go over and move over to green energy, and Europe has been putting in and subsidizing green energy, but they're also subsidizing, biofuels like burning wood and wood pellets to create energy, right? And this is really interesting because there was an article, really well done article, and gave some really great studies, and it kind of falls in line with the work that Jeff Gibbs did in his documentary Planet of the Humans. That's, the American forests are fueling, here's the title, it was the title of American forests are fueling Europe's green energy. And so it goes into biofuel and how Europe has been subsidizing green energy, but then so it opens up the door for business opportunities for people to get into biofuels, which are supposedly supposed to be green energy sources, and basically burning wood pellets, and it can be because it's regenerative in the sense that a tree grows, but how long does a tree grow? A tree that's been growing is for a long time is going to sequester a lot more carbon than a small tree that you just barely plant, and you can't really replace them at the same rate that you're going to take them down. And that was the challenge that this article was bringing up, is how regenerative or sustainable is this, right? And a very out of touch solution, I think. And I say this because I think generally we're missing and lacking, and going back to that question that was in my mind. It's like, why don't we understand this? Why isn't it common knowledge? And I think it's because we're not being taught to care for our earth and see the holistic solutions. But that question that I brought up in the beginning, and really it's the title of this episode, of what's the curriculum for caring for our earth? How do we learn these things? And why can't we get past these really out of touch solutions and behaviors that we have, right? Okay, so it's kind of enough of my world report side of things. And I want to get into maybe talking about some of the solutions that we can think of here, and it's going to actually be adding to some of the podcast episodes and interviews that we're going to be doing, and stories that we're going to be sharing in the next episodes, for a little while, right? I don't even know when some of these are going to be coming out because I've scheduled them so far in the path, but we're going to be having some people that are really working towards creating regenerative solutions and are in very good touch with the caring for the earth, right? And how they kind of came into that understanding. So it is what the story that we're going to be trying to tell in these next several interviews that I'm doing right now and working towards. So we look at this, and I'm asking you again, what's the curriculum for caring for our earth? I feel, and I'm going to keep on going back to this. Nature is that curriculum, right? Just like Rachel Carson, but how do we learn from it? And I felt like we should already know this. That really what I found in my thought of really coming to this is we've walked away from our roots of really understanding and caring for nature in a significant way, and starting to recognize patterns within nature. And I think that's the I'm looking up at this, the sun's coming out of the clouds right now. It's just really beautiful. Maybe I'll show you this for a second. I'm sorry for those that are just listening, right? I don't know if you can really see that. It's pretty. And what is the how do we recognize those patterns and get involved in them? Well, it's being out in nature. It's and then allowing those patterns to disrupt our lives in a good way, right? That's maybe we go out on enough walks that we recognize the calls of the birds and recognize that maybe there's not as many of them anymore. And then we write a book called Silent Spring because we start recognizing patterns of over-chemical use and sprays and affecting insects that are affecting birds, that are affecting ecosystems, that are affecting waters and so forth, right? And so we see those patterns. Well, nature has become unnatural for us, and that's really the big problem. The solution that I'm proposing, or the solution that I'd like to talk about and have a discussion about, is this. And it comes from my study recently, and a lot of it's coming from John Young's book, or one of John Young's book, Coyote's Guide to Engaging with Nature. Am I getting that right? I'm not getting that right. To exploring or learning from nature. Yeah, Coyote's Guide. And one of the big things that he brings up is the curriculum is nature, but it's the book of nature, and the book of nature is essentially the pattern of nature that we learn from. That's how Rachel Carson really got to understand the solution, was that she understood the book of nature, and she learned from it, and she recognized the patterns and the seasons and the cycles that exist there. And then when she felt a disruption, because there was one in those cycles, she was able to question her understanding and dive deeper a little bit, and then ask others, and question others that were seeing another side of the problem that maybe she was overlooking, and dive a little deeper. And that became her curriculum, was an ability to interact with the cycles of nature, which John Young kind of calls the book of nature. And there was really, as I've been studying this, he mentions, John Young does, kind of three big things that struck me. It starts with, the book of nature really starts with a meaningful relationship with nature, right? And so having purpose with it, a deep connection with it is the first part. And that's where we're out of touch, right? We're out of touch because we don't, I would expect that Elon Musk is more involved in the tech sector than he could possibly ever imagine and recognize the cycles of nature, to be able to see that nature has the solution to what he's going to put up $100 million for, right? And when he could just be putting money into those instead of trying to find a solution, right? The solution's already there. It should already automatically and naturally have come to him. So we kind of look at this and we say, well, the second. Well, let me backtrack just a second there. So the second thing that really impacted me with what John Young has to say about the book of nature is, you move to an understanding and interdependence and relationships, right? So as you have a deep respect and a meaningful relationship with nature, you start to move into a place where you understand it. You understand the cycles, you understand the patterns, and the interdependence, the holistic nature of things. And it exists in everything. It exists within, on a micro level, on a macro level, on a personal level, on a community, cultural level, and moving outward, that we're all interconnected in some way. From the very smallest to the largest, and everything in between, and that we have to start to recognize those patterns and interrelationships. So now that once you get into that thing, the third thing that I really took away of after understanding an understanding of interdependence and relationships, that you orient yourself to nature's lessons and the patterns, right? And so we talked about a little bit in the seed of the week of orienting ourselves as entrepreneurs to the different cycles within our lives, right? You look at the seasons, we mimic and fall into those patterns as well, right? Winter, we spend our energy is a little bit more inward and reflective, and there's a time and season of all things, right? And recognizing those patterns within ourselves and within nature, and seeing the connections there. But then we orient ourselves to those patterns. We start to fall in line with them. And as we start to fall in line with them, we will recognize the solutions. They'll come to us. All of a sudden, we'll start to collaborate more and see the connections between what someone is doing over here and what someone's doing over there. That nothing is isolated or cut off from another. That though I'm doing something within entrepreneurship, that it still is a deep impact on the regenerative future that we would like to see. Though someone is in the tech industry, they can still have a great contribution to having a solution in our regenerative future, right? And that someone, although a naturalist could be studying, specific waterways, we all know, or oceans. The people doing the work on land need to have an understanding that what they're doing is affecting the oceans and vice versa. There's everything's interrelated and interconnected, right? And as we start to see that, and we start to pattern ourselves and come in and orient ourselves to this book of nature, this I shouldn't say new curriculum, this natural curriculum, we start to recognize those solutions. So what does this mean for our regenerative livelihood? Here's where I kind of want to end this up and start a conversation on this, and hopefully it's helpful to you. You can make a livelihood in mentoring people to understand the book of nature, right? And finding this new this curriculum in nature. It's not new; it's the oldest thing, right? But we need to come back to it. We need to have a new enthusiasm for starting to come back to it, so we can find these solutions, so that we can understand these solutions. And that's a work that needs to be done. And so there's a lot of people, if you're looking to create a regenerative livelihood, and maybe you're just starting, you're entrepreneurial or whatever, and you're trying to figure out what work that you can do. Well, if you love to educate, if you love to mentor, there's a lot of work for you in creating a livelihood for helping people to come to this realization. I think that's one of the greatest things. We look at the issues that we're having in our efforts and these out of touch solutions that we're creating. We don't have enough people teaching, and even if we have great regenerators out there doing the work, there is still so much more that we could do if the general populace had at least a decent understanding of regeneration and just an awareness of nature themselves, right? So that culturally we can make these changes. And I think a lot of that has to do with our educators, getting people out there and having enough mentors that are getting people and our children and our older generations as well, who've been deeply out of touch with nature for some time, in a lot of respects. My generation, millennials, and so forth as well, and so we need people that are educating. So that's a livelihood that we can do. Another thing that I was thinking about on the regenerative livelihood front is you can start bringing people into your business that have an understanding of the book of nature. If you're looking for solutions, or maybe you're not even a business that's necessarily regenerative. You're not a farmer. You're a regenerative farmer. You're not someone that has a nonprofit that's doing community-driven regenerative things or whatever. You're just a business that's trying to do do as much good as possible, right? Well, I've started to witness more people that are adding those values of a deep respect for nature into their core values as a business, and those values go into who you hire and who resonates with your culture. And if we start to create more cultures that are more focused on that, your business will eventually turn into that as well, right? To create more regenerative solutions, to look for and find and recognize the patterns and the solutions that exist within nature. So that's something that you can do if you're a current business owner, and if you are working in a field that isn't inherently tied to the book of nature, you have the opportunity to do so right now, right? You have the opportunity to kind of step up and, create something new. Maybe you're a tech entrepreneur and you're starting to be awakened by permaculture principles and the ethics around permaculture and regenerative practices, and you understand that everything around you is so different from that. And when I first got my PDC and started learning about permaculture, that was so blatantly apparent to me. I was thinking, like, how do I exist in this world now, understanding what I do? And that right there was huge. Was a huge point where I had to do as much as I could with the skill set that I have, right? Sales and marketing and entrepreneurship is what I've largely spent my career in, and knew I was going to be a social entrepreneur. But when I found about permaculture, I felt like I had to apply that into my marketing and apply that into and the great thing is because it's a holistic approach that we can. So if you don't think that your industry or your work is not directly tied to regeneration, I have to tell you that it is, right? I hear this all the time, and I talk to a lot of people that are excited about the regenerative work. They're following everything, but they're saying, I don't have a homestead, or I'm not working in the industry, and so of farming or food production, and so I don't have a contribution there yet, or I would like to have a contribution there yet, but I'm just in my my job as a customer in customer services or whatever, right? And I'm like, why can't you, right? Why can't you, in your role that you currently are, bring it and turn it into a regenerative livelihood? And that's the question that I have for you, and I hope that you start to take action in trying to find ways that you can do that. And it really does just maybe it exists on a level of, like, can you bring the culture of your business or of your colleagues in your work more focused in around nature and understanding the holistic approaches and recognizing different things. Especially, so I think of, like, the textile industry. If you're working in the textile industry, or if you're working in big tech and all of these places that seem so far away, there's so many solutions that we can bring to the forefront, right? How do we reduce our tech waste? How do we reduce the dependence on technology but still use it for good and impactful ways. All right, so I'm going on and I on this subject, but I really do. I want to end it on a good positive note, and I think it's in the work that we can do in creating our regenerative livelihoods. So my call to action is that we do this together. That if we can do our part and see and become more interconnected and interdependent on one another, because we really are, and maybe less in this modern world, we see a lot of dependence. We see either a lot of dependence on others, or we see straight up independence in our work. Right? I can do it all alone. I have this go at it alone approach, and what I'm hoping that we can see is start to recognize that we all do this work together, and that we're all doing this work together. So let's come together. Let's come together as a community, and we have the Seeds of Tao community. It's a place, but for us to gather, and I hope that you're aware of those opportunities to get involved with the Seeds of Tao. But it's not the only place. I mean, we have the Global Regenerative Collab. We have the Permaculture Collab. We have some wonderful bioregional groups. Get involved in your local area as much as you can, and then see where you can, because we're often few, and we're a big group of us, but we're very thinly spread all over the world. So maybe you have a certain interest in an area, and you can work with some of these collabs, like the Permaculture Collab and the Global Collab and the Seeds of Tao. I'm not calling us a collab, but we're the Seeds of Tao community, which is largely focused on our personal learning efforts and creating regenerative livelihood more on the individual level, but in connecting us on an individual level, right? Whereas you see a lot of the collabs that are more focusing on the bigger group projects or bigger projects. I'm really more focused on, the Seeds of Tao is more focused on your personal education. So there's different communities that you can get involved in, and I hope that you do. And that's my call to action, is as we recognize and get involved with nature, and going back to those kind of three pieces of what I think the solutions are, is like, start with a meaningful relationship with nature and your relationship to everything around you, and it includes ourselves because we're a part of nature, right? And move to an understanding and interdependence of relationships, and then orient yourself to the book of nature and the curriculum of nature, right? And as we do that, a big part of that is making sure that we see the interconnectedness of the work that we're doing together. So get involved in the community, get started on something. And as some last notes here, I'm trying to do these world reports where I'm actually figuring out some really good ways to work with new stories and new knowledge, and finding new resources. So if you have any resources, and I'm creating a list, and I'm going to post this publicly on the Seeds of Tao Slack and within some of the social channels as well, but a database of really reliable resources to getting our news and finding out new stories that are happening within regeneration, so that we can share the work of what's happening to move this work forward, right? So I'm going to be sharing that in a little while, and I'll share with you what I already have and where I'm getting some of my resources, and you can look at some of that in the show notes and the blog post that's going to go along with this as well. That's one place I'm going to place it. So I'm creating those resources. I would love for you to add to those, or make a note in there so I can add it in there, because I'm not going to make it editable, but I'll make it so that people can add notes to it if they have a resource that they would like to have in there. But it's there for you too, to go and find out some of the things that are happening out in the world, to get involved in some of the stories and some of the businesses. Maybe find, if you're looking for people to align with or work with or collaborate with, based on the environment that's coming around. And so I'm doing this as this is a database for news resources. I'm also going to start creating another database for our the people that we have on the show, and the stories that are being told, and trying to keep in line with those. So you can always go back to that and search it by category and so forth. And this right now it's going to be super simple. I'm just doing this on a Google Sheet, Google spreadsheet. So we might get a little bit more elaborate and techie with it later on, but that's what it is for now. And hopefully you can help add to that as well. If you have a story that needs to be told, get involved with the community. Get involved with some of the communities that Seeds of Tao is aligned with as well, which are the Permaculture Collab, the GRC, which is the Global Regenerative Collab. There's also, if you're in the North America region, there's PINA, Permaculture Institute of North America. They have a Slack channel. They also have kind of a convergence as well that they try to do. Last time it was online. But yeah, so there's things going on, and get involved with your local area. We have a really awesome permaculture community here in Salt Lake, though we haven't been doing as much because of COVID. But we still need to be engaging with our local areas and bioregion. And yeah, get out in nature, get involved in your ecosystem. Enjoy days like this. All right, so hope you enjoyed today's podcast. We are expecting some really great interviews. Some things to look forward to is we're partnering with the GRC to share some of the stories of those that are in that network. And if you don't know about the GRC, it is a wonderful community. It acts as I like to call it a commons for the regenerative network, right? It's a regenerative network commons, right? And its focus is really connecting and collaborating. And Dave Witzel and Dave Hutchins, they don't really like to be talked too much about because they like to talk about others. And so what we're doing in this coming up series is helping to share some of the people that are involved in that community and the things that have come from the collaboration within the community and the stories that are existing, showing this wonderful diverse work that we're involved in. And the diversity of work is tremendous. There's so much that needs to be done and is being done. And so we're bringing those stories up in a 12-part series. There's going to be 12 episodes. Stay tuned for more information on that as we release. Still haven't figured out all the details together, but we're going to be partnering with the GRC and with some other friends, and I'll start mentioning who those friends are in the next little while. But stay tuned for some wonderful stories within the regenerative community. Awesome things that are happening there. All right, so bye for now. As always, keep on growing your mind, keep on growing your heart, and of course, keep on growing the garden. Bye for now.